This time I want to talk about monopolies. There is a huge misconception about how monopolies happen. Just like we have a misconception about what free markets are and what capitalism is. We also have a misconception about the nature of monopolies. I just heard myself, and it's disconcerting to think that we actually have a misconception about what capitalism is. I've talked about this before, I've written about this before, but just briefly, we do not actually have a capitalist system in America. Really, we don't have a truly capitalist and free market system anywhere in the Western world anymore. So when people blame capitalism, they're blaming something that doesn't really exist. They're blaming a system other than capitalism. But I wanted to, and this does kind of tie into my main topic here is monopolies. How do monopolies happen? First off, a monopoly by definition is only when one supplier is in the marketplace. But there can only be one supplier in the marketplace if they actually gain market share and gain more market share and then gain more market share. But in a capitalist system, they must be efficient. They must give good value to their customers in order to gain that kind of market share. If they get greedy as they gain market share and start charging more and more and more for their product, that will attract others to the market to undercut them, and that will happen in a free market system. Therefore, if a company gains a large market share, they have a vested interest in keeping prices competitive. They have a vested interest in still providing good value to the people buying their products. Now, if they do get greedy and stray from that, others will come into the marketplace to provide that. The main way that actual true monopoly is established is by the government. And our public utilities are an example of that. Your electricity, your natural gas, are government monopolies, government established monopolies. And that is exactly why they were regulated by the PUC as the price, because they are monopolies. Another example is back in the early days of passenger travel by airplane, Pan Am Company had transatlantic passenger service, and that was government established. Juan Trippe had friends in high places, as they say, including Senator Owen Brewster, who I believe was from Maine, that really pushed this. That does not help the consumer when the government goes in and actually protects someone and doesn't allow anyone else into the marketplace. That is where a monopolistic abuse can start to occur, which is why Howard Hughes, when he bought TWA, fought so hard to get into the transatlantic market. So there actually was some competition. And Owen Brewster, being in the pocket of Juan Trippe, actually tried to prevent TWA from entering the transatlantic passenger market. But see, this is an example of why we can't trust government to have our best interests in mind. When government starts interfering in the markets, it becomes a protectionist market. They try to protect those in the market. They protect those who they think should have certain business, and that always hurts the consumer. That is why it is so dangerous, this road we're going down presently in America and the Western countries, that so many people think government will actually protect the consumer. Government does not protect the consumer. It corrupts markets. It distorts markets. It makes supply chains more inefficient because government people are not business people. You need to let business people find the most efficient ways to supply products to people. Teddy Roosevelt often spoke of antitrust this, antitrust that, monopolies. But the truth of the matter is that when these companies that he was talking about gained more market share, they lowered their prices to protect that market share. And John D. Rockefeller, the Rockefeller family who started Standard Oil, they began selling kerosene. In 1870, Standard Oil only had 4% of the market. 20 years later, by 1890, it was an 85% market share. Now, John Rockefeller could have used that huge market share to gouge consumers. But, again, that would have drawn other people to the market if he started to do so. Because there is now fat in the market. But he didn't do that because he wanted to hang on to that market share. So in those 20 years, when he went from 4% market share to 85% market share, kerosene prices fell. In fact, in 1869, kerosene prices were 30 cents per gallon. By 1897, they were a mere 6 cents per gallon. This also had an added benefit, is that it made oil products so cheap that gasoline also dropped in prices. And this is how Henry Ford found a mass market for automobiles. He started making Model Ts. He had his team of engineers design and improve his assembly lines. And this led to higher wages. And Henry Ford, just like John D. Rockefeller, he wasn't doing it out of the goodness of his heart. He did it because it made good business sense. He raised his workers' wages. And yes, he had to pay his workers more, but it also reduced turnover, which reduced training costs, which allowed more efficiency in his automobile business. He didn't have to constantly be training new hires. Again, he gained market share. But he gained market share by being more efficient. And you maintain that market share by not acting like a monopoly, even though you have a large market share. This gets at the fundamental truth involved here, that businesses do not gain large market shares by gouging their customers. They gain large market shares by offering better value to their customers than the competition. And if they gain a large market share, they maintain that market share by continuing to offer that better value to their customers.